what I'm saying, but we'll give it a go there, and we'll get going here. The first thing we'll cover is some club status, and then we'll get to our main topic. Future meetings coming up this Friday. We do have the MACSIG. They meet monthly. They go over the news that's come out in the last month, some tech updates, and it looks like Mike was wrestling with a HomePod mini speaker, and we'll talk about tagging photos there, first impressions of the MacBook, and then any other questions. We do have a monthly question and answer meeting, online meeting, and the next one coming up is February 1st. You're welcome to join us. And that usually runs an hour from 11:30 to 12:30. And our next general meeting will be Wednesday, February 16th. We'll talk about scams and cyber threats by myself, Tom Kreuzer, common scams and how to protect yourself there. Our officers, Jim is our president, Linda is our vice president, Paul is our membership secretary, Paula is our treasurer, Chuck is our recording secretary, Mike is our MacSig, Andrew is our communication coordinator, I'm a director at large. We do have some other volunteers. There's a picture from the last time we kind of all got together at the picnic there. We're always looking to add new people, and I think Jim mentioned last time, if you would like to see what the board does and how it operates, you're welcome to join us. So we have monthly meetings for the PCC board, and you're welcome to join us for that, and then we'd find you a position there for you, because we do have some members that are maybe looking to move out of the board there. So if you have any interest at all, contact myself or any other of the board members. Members old and new, you can pay your dues to Paul Ebert. He does send an email out when your membership expires. So if you haven't received an email, your membership hasn't expired there. So he sends a series of emails when you get close to the date and when it's expired there. Also a reminder to notify us when you do change your email so that we can keep in touch with you. If you have suggestions for topics, you can email your topics or talk to any of the board members. We're also looking for people to volunteer to present on any hardware or software that you may use at work or at home, or to write a short or long article for our monthly eBytes newsletter. We do have a website. I post out there the past meeting slides and handouts, so if you do miss any meeting or want to revisit it, you can go out there, and we do try and record the meetings, so those are also available out there. We have a deals section with some discounts, our monthly newsletter, and the link to the site is sent in all the emails, or if you do a Google search, you can find it too. We just recently completed the PC Club survey. I want to thank the 51 people who responded. We have a total of about 130 30 or 31 PC Club members, so that's a very good response. The results I published out on the PC Club website. It's about a 10-page document. Interesting trends that the club is doing, but we use this information to make important decisions about the club, and we also use it for some of the presentations. I do use a couple of the stats today about in the home networking and that, so thank you very much for taking the time and effort there to complete the survey. Okay, let's get to our main topic, which is home network. Strong home network is especially important with the Internet of Things, or the IoT is the buzzword that you hear in the industry and in the media there, that we live in today, because we're getting to the point where everything is starting to get interconnected. You have Wi-Fi capabilities and all these different devices and things that you have in the home. It's not like the old days when you just had a single PC and that was connected by a phone line back in the, or a modem back in the old days, and then we got the uh, Ethernet connection to our desktop computer. But now we have tablets and phones and TVs that connect and lights that connect and thermostats and security systems and video cameras and etc., etc. Poor Wi-Fi is the number one cause of frustration within the home trying to get these devices connected, working, and not have buffering problems or security problems or things like that. So hopefully with the tips and the information today, you can become a better network administrator of your home network and solve your problems there. Personally, I have 4 TVs that are connected to my Wi-Fi network. I have 4 Amazon devices that are connected to my network. I have 2 video cameras that are connected. I have over 10 smart plugs within my house. I have a laptop. I have 2 tablets. I have a smartphone. So I have over 25 connections to my Wi-Fi, in addition to 4 Ethernet connections within my house that I have hardwired connections. So I'm not that unusual. There's going to be people with more connections and then people with fewer connections. But if you don't have a lot of connections now, you will as you buy more and more of these devices. This is from the survey. This talks about the type of internet connection that we have coming into the house. And cable broadband had 51% of the people that responded have that. DSL, the phone line, 29%. Fiber optics, 14%. And 3G, 4G, or 5G, 6%. I would have expected the fiber optics to be a little bit higher, but in some neighborhoods and some locations, fiber optics is not available or hasn't been rolled out yet. But fiber optics usually is the best connection that you can have right now. This is a diagram showing the typical model that we have. You have the internet, and the internet comes into the house and is connected to a modem. And this modem, we'll talk about the function of the modem, and then the modem connects to a wireless router. And then the wireless router is what connects to all of the devices that you may have in the house, whether it's smart home devices, home security, cameras, storage, games, DVD, TVs, printers, tablets, laptops, desktops, all these different devices. So let's talk about those components that we have in a home network. I talked about the internet being connected to a modem. And a modem is a device that converts the cable, if you have a cable coming into your house, or if you have a phone line coming into your house, or if you have fiber optics coming into your house, that's what converts the signal from that cable or phone line or fiber optics into a signal that is then passed to an Ethernet connection. So a modem doesn't do Wi-Fi. Modem just converts it from one of these lines to an Ethernet. A router is a computer. So the next thing, the modem passes along the signal to a wireless router. Now, some people don't have wireless. You may just have a router that has 4 Ethernet ports off of it. But most people have a wireless router there. This router is a full-fledged computer. The modem is somewhat of a computer, but it has less options and less functions. The router has literally hundreds of functions, has an operating system, has memory, has a processor, and it's what takes the Ethernet connection and outputs it to Wi-Fi and to multiple Ethernet connections. A modem and a router can be combined into one device, which Xfinity calls a gateway. And Xfinity leases that gateway. So if you haven't bought the equipment yourself, you're paying a lease fee of between $14 and $30 a month for the right to lease those devices to convert your signal coming into your house. I recommend that you buy a separate modem and a router. I can hear somebody there. If you want to mute yourself or make sure that you're muted, that'd be great. When we get to the end, then you can unmute and ask a question or that if you want. But I recommend you buy a separate modem and a router. That'll end up saving you between $100 and $300 a year over leasing it. That way you can buy exactly what you need and upgrade each, whether it's the modem or the router, as needed at a lower cost and get better performance. If you are currently leasing and you want to look to replace these, you can go to your provider, your internet service provider website, and see what makes and models of these modems are supported. So you want to make sure that if you are going to buy one, that you buy the right make and model so that you can connect it in. And some people just look at their current make and model that they have and look to buy the same one that they have. But if you go out to the website, it'll list a number of makes and models that are supported by your internet service provider. Once you know these different models, you can look on Amazon, eBay, or Craigslist to purchase a used or a new modem. And you'll also see them in places. Target carries a few modems. Best Buy carries a few modems. Walmart. So they do have a few models in that. They may not have the one that you need, but if you are looking, you can look around at those places too. Okay, we're getting somebody's still got their mic on. If you could mute your mic, that'd be great there. Okay, what I list here is PC Magazine does have an article talking about cable modems, whether you should rent or buy, and so I just put a reference here. If you download the handouts or the slides, you'll be able to click on this and go right to the article. Oh, it says John Stopko is requesting control. We will deny. Okay, here I talked about earlier, don't lease your modem or router from your internet service provider because of the cost. I recommend that you end up buying those yourself, and you'll save money and you'll be able to get the quality and replace them as needed there. So it's a win-win when you do it yourself there. And we'll talk about the routers and things like that a little bit later here. Okay, now let's talk about a Wi-Fi router. So the first component in there was the modem. The next component is the Wi-Fi router. So the modem took the signal, whether it's from your cable, TV cable coming in, or your phone line, or the fiber optics, and converted it to an Ethernet signal. A router can take that Ethernet signal and convert it to a Wi-Fi signal, and also allow you to have multiple Ethernet connections. So routers are very important there. And unlike a modem, you can use any router with any internet provider. So a router is not specific to only working with Xfinity or CenturyLink or that. A router will work with any provider. So if you switch from TV from Xfinity to CenturyLink, you'll be able to use it. If you switch from DSL to fiber optics, you'll be able to use it. So routers are very different than a modem there. A basic router, like you get from your provider leases to you, Usually you could buy that for anywhere between $25 and $100 because they aren't very sophisticated. They don't have necessarily the coverage in a house or the features and things like that. But some of the more advanced routers can start at $100 and go up to $600. So which router is right for you depends on your needs. If you live in an apartment, a small apartment, one-bedroom apartment, you can get by with probably a $50 or $30 router, and you won't have any problem at all. You'll have maximum speed. You'll have coverage of the whole apartment. No problem at all. But that $30 router wouldn't work in a larger house that had more obstructions and things like that. So which one's right for you depends on what your needs are. And some of your needs may be coverage. I mentioned here the apartment to a 3-story house. If you need signals to reach, you want the signals to reach upstairs and downstairs and different places. Signals, if there were no obstructions in the way, can usually reach about 300 feet. But because we all have houses and our walls and wires and mirrors and refrigerators and other things in the way, that blocks signals. So in some cases, the signals from a Wi-Fi router are traveling less than 10 feet before they get blocked and can go no further. Another thing that it depends on is the number of devices connected and the maximum bandwidth that you need in those devices. So if you're trying to connect a lot of devices to your network, having a cheaper router is like having a slow PC. It's not going to be able to respond to all these different devices and be able to give the maximum bandwidth to all of them. So if you're trying to watch TV and your TV is capable of 4K TV or 8K TV, you need a very fast router. And you need a strong signal, and you don't want to have contention from a lot of devices in that. So depending on your needs, again, there's routers to help do everything. Another is what Wi-Fi standard is supported. In addition to the standard, there's things like dual band, tri-band, MUMO, beamforming. Also, some of the routers have ports to attach a USB drive or a printer so that you can share it on your home network. So there's lots of different things that can be done, and you have to figure out what you want in your home network. Also, if you currently have a router or are having problems with dead zones in the house due to walls, steel objects, electronic interference, brick, concrete, even mirrors. Mirrors will essentially block signals. So if you have mirrors in the house, think of that as completely stopping the signal there. Another option to look at when you're looking at routers is the better routers or the more expensive routers do have directional antennas. So you can, if you're having problems in a certain spot or area, it's possible to direct the antennas to get a better signal there in that area. Another option is guest networks. Most of the better routers do support the ability to set up a guest network. So if you're having friends and family over, or even your kids, if you want to separate the kids off into a separate network than what you have for your business or what you use for the TV or your video cameras for streaming, you can separate it off that way too. Another thing to look for in routers is the quality of service. So I mentioned that they're computers. Well, the computers have options in there, and the software has options where you can set a higher priority for things like Netflix streaming. So if your connection is buffering or you have some issues there, you can give a higher priority to to different devices or different users. And so if you've got multiple users in the house and all these devices, you can say, I'm going to give a lower priority to these ones that don't need the highest priority. Another thing to look for too is there's something called Internet Protocol version. The older devices support IPv4, and this has to do with TCP/IP addresses, the length of the address, and that standard is being updated and is being replaced by IPv6. Just because we've got so many other devices, we need more addresses, and so they need to make the addresses longer and bigger. And some of the older routers only support the old standard there and would have to be replaced. This is, I put a couple of links to PC Magazine articles, the best budget routers and the best in general. This is just a small sampling there because, as I mentioned before, depending on your needs, you can get by with a $35 router that would work fine in your situation, or you may want to spend upwards of $300 or $400 for if you have a large house and you want the fastest routers possible. So there's all kinds of options there. Okay, these routers also support a Wi-Fi standard, and that standard is known as the 802.11, 802.11. It's a Wi-Fi standard that has improved over the years. So in the bottom here, you can see the table. 802.11a, that came out in 1997, maximum data rate of 1 to 2 megabytes, and a frequency of 2.4 gigahertz, and one stream of data. So over the years, about every 2 to 3 years, you end up with a new standard. And that new standard then supports faster speed, it supports maybe different frequencies, and it supports different number of streams. And the streams is how many concurrent streams can it have going at once. The more streams it supports, if you have all these different devices that want to stream video content to your TV or from your video cameras, you need the capabilities to be able to handle massive amounts of data. Most of the people, well, we'll take a look at what the survey told us a little later there, and I'll maybe go into there. Routers are always backwardly compatible, so when you buy a new router, it can support also talking to some of these old devices using an old standard. But if you have an old router and you buy a new iPhone and the iPhone supports AX and your router is N router, 802.11n, your limitation is the router. It's not the phone. It's the router that's the problem there. So that's where you want to match things up to get the best quality, the best security, the best that you can have there. I mentioned here your current router should be at least an 802.11ac. 802.11acs came out in 2014, so they've been around 8 years. So if you have an N, you have an old, it's like having an old PC, a 10-year-old old PC or 12-year-old old PC. It's ancient in electronic terms there. You want to be using the more current standards to take advantage of the speed that they can go and the security and the number of streams and frequencies. So it's all this. So if you have an older standard, you need to buy a new router, and that'll provide you with more speed and better security. If you're buying a new router, I recommend 802.11ax or Wi-Fi 6 is what you should buy. So if we look down here, this is 802.11ax. Sometimes it's referred to as Wi-Fi 6. Don't get this confused with cell data plans where you have 5G and 4G. Those are completely different. They have nothing to do with these numbers, and the Wi-Fi. Here I mentioned you should buy the AX or Wi-Fi 6. It handles a larger number of devices using multiple input, multiple output, and OFDMA. It also supports better battery life for home devices. So if you have cameras or devices that are operating on batteries, even your phones and tablets and things like that, your battery will last longer with these newer devices because the way they check to see if you're still connected is more efficient. So just like operating systems get more efficient, these Wi-Fi routers have gotten more efficient. And they'll save energy, which will make the batteries last longer, and everything still can do its job and that. Now, there is a new standard that's coming out this year. You won't see it if you're looking at buying a router right now. You won't see it on the routers, but it'll be coming out later this year. It's called 802.11be or Wi-Fi 7. And that's faster than 2.4 times faster than the previous standard, lower latency, and depending on the router, you may have anywhere 16, 32 streams of potential there. Okay, this is from the survey, and this is a bit disturbing. So we asked the question, what is the standard of your current router? And 14% said they don't have a router, which I find that hard to believe because even if you don't have a Wi-Fi network, you usually have a router in there. But so there's a few there. Then we get to unknown. 22% of the people don't know what they have. So you could be leasing Xfinity equipment and be running with the 802.11n, let's say, and you've been running with it for 5 years or 6 years. You're not getting the speed, the quality, the security that you can get with a new router there. And so if we look down here, the AC is what I recommend that you currently have. You can see that very few people know that they have an AC. 27% and 8% have the AX. So 35% people should have newer routers. Like I say, it's like operating a computer that's 10 years old. You don't want to be operating that. And especially if you're having any kind of problems with your home network, you don't want to be running with old equipment there. Okay, so if you do have problems with your home, and a lot of people do have problems, whether the home's a multi-story home, or you have mirrors in there, or you have other things that block your coverage from one room to another or one floor to another, you may have heard of range extenders or repeaters. You can install these range extenders or repeaters. They can be an easy solution if you have a problem with quality to coverage. So this is in this little diagram here, this is the original network. And the original network, when I came to the wall here, it was kind of getting blocked. And so whenever a person would try and use devices in here, it was spotty coverage. It wasn't real good, or you'd have to hold the phone in a certain location or be sitting on the bed to get a connection. That's where an extender or repeater placed just on the edge of your current network can repeat the signal and give you a strong signal in some of these dead spots that you may have in your house. So an extender or repeater can be an option there. What you do is you plug that range extender into an electrical socket at the outer range of your existing router's coverage. It catches the signal, so it sees all the signals coming here, and then repeats it out here. The rebroadcasting signal is typically half the strength and half the speed of what you get from the main router. And they usually create a separate network that makes seamless roaming throughout the house a little difficult, but it can help there. You'll see that I don't really recommend extenders or repeaters. They tend to cause more problems than they solve. but a number of people have put them in. And again, depending on the speed that you need, if you had a 4K TV out here, it may not work because, again, your speed would have been cut in half and the quality just may not be there. Some of the extenders or repeaters you can connect to an Ethernet line. So if you do have an option or can run an Ethernet line from your original router coming into the house to this extender, that's going to increase your speed twice. It's going to be twice as fast as if it has to get the original Wi-Fi signal and repeat it out. Now, just like the modems themselves, these repeaters support all different standards. So you want to know what standard you're buying in your extender repeater. So if your original router is an 802.11 AC, you're probably going to want 802.11 AC extenders or repeaters. Because if you put an 802.11n out here, that just means that these devices that connect over here are not going to be able to take advantage of the faster speed and capabilities of an 802.11ac. And this is a link to some information from PC Magazine on extenders. Okay, another option, this is becoming the more popular option than the extenders, is something called a home mesh network. And a home mesh network, let's look at the diagram over here. On the right-hand side, we look at a 4-story house here that just had a router down on the first floor. That signal covered a little bit of this room and a little bit of the room up here, but it never could make its way to the second or third floors there. Putting in these wireless hubs or mesh, you put them throughout the house. So maybe one per floor, and now you're getting coverage all the way from the first floor all the way up to the 4th floor. So the current routers, if you just have a single router, that can usually provide coverage to kind of a small to medium-sized house. If you have a larger house and with multiple stories in that, and if you have dense walls or stucco or thick plaster walls, that's blocking signals. And multiple floors and metal and concrete structures and other implements will block the signal. Range extenders do a good job of filling the dead zones we talked about in the last slide, but typically only provide half the bandwidth that you get from your main router. These mesh networks or access points offer more bandwidth than the range extenders, but require a wired connection to the main router. And both solutions typically create a new network SSID, which is the name of the network that you have to log into as you move from area to area. So the mesh kind of handles all this stuff for you. It'll make sure that it's seamless going from floor to floor, room to room, and so it can eliminate this by drawing upon multiple units that you spread throughout the house. Mesh networks can run anywhere from $130 to like $700, and they usually include a base unit plus 1 or 2 extenders. If you need more extenders, you can buy additional extenders for anywhere from $70 to $250 a piece. Each unit is typically placed 30 to 50 feet from the last one, whether that's 1 room over or 2 rooms over or 1 floor up. So in this case, they're showing like four routers placed in the house there. Home mesh networks, one of the advantages are they're easy to set up and use. So they've kind of taken the guesswork out of connecting some of this stuff. You just basically plug them in and answer a few questions and they're ready to go. What you're paying for is that convenience and not higher Wi-Fi capability. So if somebody is looking to get the best performance in a house, mesh networks are not the way to go. But for ease of use, mesh networks are easy to set up and work with there. The best alternative to a mesh network is to run Ethernet network cables to parts of your house. And again, not all houses have access, and certainly a lot of people don't want to be running cables, but actually running cables gives you the best performance at the lowest cost there. There you'd have one main router with all the features that you want, and then you'd have what are called access points. So these different Wi-Fi routers can be set up as access points to the original router and give you the best connection, fastest performance, the most features, the most security at the lowest cost. Okay, those are your options for routers and how to set what you can buy, and if you have a bigger house or a smaller house or need better performance or things like that. Let's talk about once you do have a router, whether it's any of these routers that we've talked about, you should choose to be your own network administrator. Some people say, well, I don't know anything about it, so I'm going to hire the Geek Squad or I'm going to pay Xfinity to do my Wi-Fi setup. And I do not recommend that because as you'll see, it's pretty easy to do. If you can follow a few simple instructions, you can set up your home network there and save yourself money. But in addition to saving yourself money, you'll know exactly how your network is set up. So as you add new devices or if you run into any problems or stuff like that, you'll be able to troubleshoot that and have a good home network. Setup is easy, and you will then be able to make future changes and upgrades as needed. Change your router settings so that your neighbor or a hacker does not hitchhike onto your connection. So you don't want to typically use a router right out of the box. It comes with a standard admin password and a standard configuration that if I was your neighbor, I'd be able to get into your network and make changes. Usually the routers themselves, the Wi-Fi routers, don't come with the manuals anymore. I recommend that you download the manual and skim the manual for your router, and that would show you all the different features and functions that you have. We'll touch on a few of the features and functions that you want to make sure you change, but there are a number of things there. You can use a browser to change your settings, so whether it's from a phone or whether it's from your desktop or laptop, you can connect to the network and you can make the changes. You put in the browser your router's IP address and it connects you to the router. You log in and then you can make changes. I recommend making the following changes, and usually these changes take less than 5 minutes to make, so it's not a big time commitment. First thing you want to do is, if it doesn't prompt you when you log in to change the password, you want to change the password for the admin account. Use a strong password with letters and numbers. You want to disable, I recommend disabling remote administration access so your router cannot be hacked remotely from Russia or China. By default, your router is set up so that somebody outside of your home network can make changes to your home network. This feature or function is needed if you want Xfinity to be able to make changes remotely. But it also opens up the possibility of a hacker or somebody in Russia or China potentially connecting to your home network and making changes to your network. I recommend changing the default network name. That's known as the Service Set Identifier or SSID. You can come up with your own name, and then usually on the newer routers, you're going to have a 2 gigahertz and a 5 gigahertz network. You can put that at the end. I also recommend most of the routers, if you're spending $100 or more, you'll be able to create a guest network. And I recommend setting up a guest network that your friends and family could use, and you could isolate them from your main one and giving out your main router's password. Many routers use a default channel to broadcast. Your neighbors may be using the same channel, and that causes interference and slows down your network. So switching to a different channel will eliminate the problem. I recommend the use of, if you have an Android tablet or phone, you can use an app called Wi-Fi Analyzer app. If you have a laptop, you could also use some software. It's called INSSIDER, and that is a package that will also let you see what's going on in your network and that. Then you want to set encryption to WPA2, which is the current standard. Over the years, the standards have improved from WEP to WPA to WPA2. This just makes it harder for somebody who is trying to hack or see what's going on in your Wi-Fi network to get in there. Also assign a strong password to your network. So your network password shouldn't be password or 1234556. Another thing you want to do is keep the firmware updated. The firmware is the operating system for the router. Some of the routers support auto, so they'll automatically download and reboot the router when there is a new version. Others require you to log in as an admin and do the download and do the install. I recommend labeling all wires and document what the lights look like when things are okay. I'll show you a slide a little later with that on. So this is an example of going into a browser, typing in this TCP/IP address instead of www. You're typing in an address. When you type in that address, it's going to ask for the password to log into the router. You give that. And then from there, you can go to setup, you can check what it's currently set to, and you can make your changes to the passwords and set things up there. This is a slide showing my configuration in my house. This is my modem. So I have a CenturyLink modem. It's taking fiber optics in, and it has Ethernet out. And there's, excuse me, there's the lights here. And what you want to do is, you can see on here, I've taped to the side of the router what each of the lights does when the network is working fine. So this is solid orange, solid, solid. So if you have blinking or whatever, you can take a look at this at any time to see if your network is functioning normally or not. This device is down in my laundry room, connected up in the rafters there. But I do have easy access to it, so if I have to reboot it, unplug it and plug it back in, that's the reboot there. I can do that, and I can easily see my lights here to see if it's functioning properly. If I don't have a connection to the internet, the first thing I'll do is I'll come down and I'll take a look at this and see if my modem has a connection to the internet, and that's my key there. This is my wireless router. My Wi-Fi router is in a closet situated in the middle of the house. I'll show you that a little bit later. I've labeled all the wires coming in, zip tied them. Just makes it a lot cleaner, a lot easier there. I've listed all the lights on here. I've also listed some dates of when I purchased it and things like that, and passwords. But having the lights and knowing what they do when it works can save you a lot of trouble, and when you're trying to troubleshoot connections and things like that. So I highly recommend that you do this for your modem and for your Wi-Fi router. Other tips: place the router where the signal can best reach all of your devices. Located it as up high as possible. Do not put the router where a metal desk, a fridge, mirrors, a TV, or other objects can block it. You're just defeating the purpose of the Wi-Fi. Use a package like Wi-Fi Analyzer or Insider to locate areas in your house that have a weak signal or no signal at all. If your router has external antennas, try pointing them in different positions to see where you can get the best reception, or physically move the router up and down instead of down on the ground in your den or where the cable comes in. You would try and get it up as high as you can. Some routers sell more powerful antennas that can extend the range of theirs. So this is my home setup. I have a single story house there, and on the side of my house, I have my fiber optics is coming into a laundry room down in the basement. That's where my modem is. From the modem, it goes to a closet that is situated in the middle of my house, and I put my Wi-Fi router up almost to the top of the closet and in the middle of the house. From there, I also run 4 Ethernet cables, and I run Ethernet cables back to my back den and to my entertainment systems at the front of the house, TV and DVR devices and things like that. I have a couple of connections of Ethernet to both locations there. But then the Wi-Fi itself can reach inside the house, outside the house, and I get good coverage with a single router everywhere that I need it. In my garage, I have a deck off here, in all the rooms, so I get by with one single Wi-Fi router. I mentioned this software, Insider. It's free software. You can use it to verify how your network is set up. You can find locations for poor coverage. You can detect networks, and you can use it to set your antennas. And this is what it looks like. It'll tell you all the networks that are around and the signal quality and what channels they're using. So it's some very good information there. This is Wi-Fi Analyzer. It's available on Android. So if you have an Android phone or an Android tablet, it's nice to see what's happening, the signal strengths. It can actually even do a heat map for a room, showing you the dead zones within a room there. Other tips: reboot or restart regularly, at least once a quarter. That includes your modem and your router. You do not do a reset. A reset is resetting the modem and clearing all of the settings that you may have done. You're just kind of turning it off and turning it back on. You can automate this procedure by using a smart plug and a timer. So you can have a routine that says, on the first of the month at 1 a.m. in the morning, I'm going to turn that device off, and then I'm going to turn it back on. And you're rebooting the device. And just like reboots are good for laptops and desktops, reboots are good for your routers and modems there. I recommend that you buy a new router at least every 5 years to take advantage of the speed, quality, and security. Settings let you limit your kids' access. So if you're having trouble with the kids and want to control that they can only use the internet at certain times or not use it after 10 o'clock at night or things like that, you can control it within your router that way. So there's hundreds of settings. Obviously, I haven't covered everything here. I've just covered some of the simple things. 5G, 5 gigahertz is faster in speed, but it doesn't handle obstructions and the distance as well as 2.4G. So when you're connecting some of your devices, don't always assume that you're going to get better performance and quality in the 5G. Try it and see what you actually get in each location with each device. Xfinity leases you a router. By default, that router creates a home network that is a public hotspot for anybody who has an Xfinity account. I don't like the fact that Xfinity is kind of selling your Wi-Fi to other users, so I recommend that you turn that off. And you can search online and you can go into your router, or they even have options to turn it off online. I don't recommend a Wi-Fi router that also has a home phone booster. So some routers will claim, or not claim, but they'll give you a better cell phone signal inside the house. Don't combine the two functions. If you want better cell phone service inside the house, buy a separate booster there. You can check your internet speeds. This is an example here if you're trying to see if you're really getting what you paid for. Okay, final slide here. 5G cellular plan, the future. This is so the cellular plans from like AT&T and Verizon. The new standard is 5G. It has nothing to do with gigahertz or anything like that. It's 5G in the cellular world stands for fifth generation, and the standard before this was 4G, and 4G was the fourth generation. 5G, you can have a Wi-Fi hub that could potentially replace your cable, DSL, or fiber optics connection. And I ask here, can it replace it? Yes. And for a lot of people, it probably will. It's just that it's in its infancy out there. This is an example that just came out from Verizon, I think a week ago or so. This is the Verizon 5G home Wi-Fi router and their costs. And if you have 5G cellular antennas near you, and they have to be within about 2 blocks there, you can get speeds up to 1 gigabyte. So you can get as fast as fiber optics. And you can see some of the prices there, starting at $25 a month, up to $50, and then this Home Plus with unlimited storage and a few other features goes up to $70. But there are options that you'll start seeing coming out, and you'll potentially be able to put these devices throughout your house to provide you your Wi-Fi within the house. Okay, that's the end. Let me do this. I'm going to stop sharing here, stop presenting, and we'll see. I didn't see. Yeah, I can't see the chat. So if Jim or somebody who can see the chat can tell me if there's any questions. Otherwise, to ask a question, if people could unmute themselves, and you can unmute your video, and we can handle it that way.
I'll mention that at the start of the meeting, I had to join late. Apologize for that. Paula did put out the note that if anyone would like to join us at a board meeting, let any of the board members know, and we'll make sure you get the invitation to that. So I'm not sure if you covered that separately besides in the chat. So please let us know. We want to get extra input. I put the hand out there, and then thank you to Mitch for putting the link. Apparently, you have to have access to 3M SkyDrive to get the download from the chat. I did not know that. I thought anyone with access to the chat would be able to get that. I'll have to see if there's a security setting where I can open that up. So then the first question is it possible to connect a shared HD to back up all computers in your house to a Wi-Fi router?
Yes, so a number of the routers nowadays have multiple USB ports on them, and those USB ports can be used for things like a printer or a hard disk, whether it's a solid state or any type of disk. And so if you had, let's say, a 2 terabyte there, you could share that amongst all the people in your home network there, and you can set up security and access that way. Now, it used to be a big deal. It's no longer a big deal because most people are using cloud storage, and cloud storage is easier to use and things like that. So, and then you'd have access to it anywhere in the world from any device in the world if it was cloud storage. If you start adding it to your home network, you don't want to give out permission outside of your home network because a hacker or somebody else could just as easily connect in and access your files. So uh, having sharing capability within your home network gives you limited sharing capability, whereas now cloud services like Google Drive or Apple iCloud or Microsoft OneDrive are much better ways to go to share files within people and devices within the home. Okay.
Okay. Uh, John asks, how do we determine what standard we have? I'm
Uh,
sure talking about the router, that's when that question came up. So.
Usually the easiest way is if you find where your router is. A lot of people don't even know where it is, but where your cable comes in, uh, uh, find your router. Look at the label on the router. Most of the information is already on the label on the router. If it's not on there, or you're having trouble deciphering all the stuff that's on there, just write down the model number of your router and who it's from, and just do a Google search, and you can find it that way.
Okay, and then Paula's got a two-part question. Is it a requirement of a home network that you have both a modem and a router?
Yes, you now I mentioned in there that if you are an Xfinity customer, Xfinity combines the two devices together, but physically inside of that box that you have is a modem and is a router. So they call it a gateway. The gateway takes the cable coming in and does the conversion to an Ethernet and then goes to the Wi-Fi router. The disadvantage of having that gateway is modems, you can usually get by replacing modems maybe once every 7 to 10 years. They don't change that much. The standards don't change, and speed wise and things like that. The Wi-Fi routers are changing about every 2 to 3 years. So you want to buy a new Wi-Fi router every 2 to 3 years if you want maximum performance, maximum security, and that to keep up there. Okay.
And I'll add to that I've gotten the gateway and then I just bought a router and used the gateway just for the modem capabilities. You can do that if you already have the gateway because of what you just said. The modem part of the gateway still works fine. And then the second part of Paula's question is she purchased her Technicolor C212, whatever the model number. It's an 802.11ac router from CenturyLink. The web page says it will be retired soon. Should I run right out and upgrade, or do I have some time?
You have time because it is a case of the routers uh, will continue to function there, and chances are you've got old devices. So a number of smart devices, smart plugs are, if go out and buy it today, some of those are still connecting at 802.11n. So the devices, it's backwardly compatible. It's to take advantage of new capabilities that you want the new functionality there. Um, so but it is worthwhile to buy it, buy a new router to take advantage of the speed in that. So if you buy 1 gigabyte speed and you have an old router that's only capable of, let's say, 200 megabytes, chances are your actual throughput may be 40 megabytes. And so you're paying for all the extra money for the fast speed. You're not taking advantage of it on any of your devices because you have a weak router. So that's the reason to upgrade there. Do you have to run out right away? Not necessarily, but again, I recommend that you buy both the modem and the router, not lease it from Xfinity or from CenturyLink. That way, buy new stuff as it comes out every 2 to 3 years there, because you'd still be ahead than if you lease that. If you were paying $15 a month or $20 a month, you're paying $240 a year for that device. You can afford to buy new devices every 3 years, let's say, and still save money. So, and you end up with higher quality equipment than if you had continued to lease their old equipment.
Thanks, Tom. That does not include the modem in it? This Technicolor
No,
P2100.
the Technicolor is just the Wi-Fi router, because what you have should have in your house is similar to what I showed. Do you have fiber optics coming into your house, or do you have a telephone line?
No, not a telephone line.
So if you have fiber optics coming into your house, the fiber optics has to plug into a modem. That modem converts it to an Ethernet signal. That Ethernet signal is what is going into your router.
Okay, thank you.
And it's a lot of people think that their router is the modem, and then I say to them, no, let's trace this back. So if we trace it back in their house, they'll see the fiber optics. The fiber optics modem is typically put wherever the entry point is into your house, because they don't want to run fiber inside your house. Fiber is expensive, and you can break it, because it is a glass deal. If kids or anybody hits it with a stick or something like that, you can break your fiber optics and be up the creek. So CenturyLink or any of the fiber optics providers will put the modem, the fiber optics modem, as close to where it came in as possible. So they need electricity, and you need that coming into the house, and they usually will put it in, let's say, a laundry room or a utility room or whatever that has that. And then from there, you'll have an Ethernet cable going to your Wi-Fi.
Got it. Thank you, Tom.
Okay.
Steve says, so replacing a CenturyLink fiber modem with a third party is okay, but should check with CenturyLink for compatible modems. Is that right?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, what you want to do is you want to go out to the CenturyLink site for your city and they'll list the recommended modems. And usually they'll list maybe 5 or 6 different models and brands there. You can then search Amazon or eBay or go to Best Buy or stuff like that and look there. And what you'll see is the modems. If you have a modem that hasn't been replaced in 5 years or 6 years, that may only support that IPv4. And I wouldn't buy an IPv4 model right now, even though it works, because a year from now or something, CenturyLink could say, "Oh, you have to replace the modem there with a version 6." So modems do need to be upgraded and do come with newer capabilities, newer security, and that. They just don't change as fast as the Wi-Fi routers. Okay.
And Bonnie says she has a gateway with CenturyLink DSL. If I just upgrade the router, then do I need to turn off the existing router to upgrade to the new router so they don't conflict?
Yes, that's a good point, because Jim, you mentioned too, if you do have a gateway which has both a router and the modem in there, you can go into the configuration for that gateway device and you can turn off the router, the Wi-Fi capability there. So that's what you do, is you turn off the Wi-Fi capability, and then you could use whatever router you replaced it with there. and it wouldn't be conflicting because like you
Yeah.
mentioned, and that is if you leave them both on, since nobody's really connecting to the old Wi-Fi, it's just causing interference. So I always tell people a Wi-Fi router is kind of like being at a Vikings football game. If you have a bunch of neighbors that are right around you with routers and that, everybody's yelling. And the clearer that you can make your signal by being on a different channel, by being the strongest signal, things like that, you're going to get better performance out of your Wi-Fi than if it's all competing. All this noise is causing your router to check and say, oh, this isn't in this home network. I have to disregard this. I disregard this. I disregard this, and you don't want that. That just slows down your speeds.
Okay. And then Scott says, would the new 5G routers still pick up 4G signals? I know 5G is not in our city yet, but I need to upgrade my router anyway.
No, no, it won't pick up the 4G. They call them hotspots, because essentially it's a cell phone doing a hotspot for 4G. Uh, 4G speeds are not, you can't get what you get with 5G. So 5G is a huge change. And I think we had a meeting before, whether it was a question and answer, or I can't remember if it was a general meeting, but 5G requires that these towers be placed within about 2 blocks of the signal receiving it. So unlike 4G, which could be a half a mile away, that's why they have to put up more cell towers. The cell towers are pushing out stronger signals. The signals are in a different frequency, and so everything's different about between the fourth generation and the fifth generation there. The latency, everything there. So if you wanted to see, you can buy the devices for the 4G that are the hotspots. They're just little boxes that you can put in your house, and it'll create your own Wi-Fi network within the house cell using cell service there. Okay.
Okay, one more question, and then I'm going to have to drop, so someone else would have to moderate if you keep going. Please expand on changing the router default channel to a different channel.
Yeah, by default, and this is especially true of the 2.4 gigahertz, I believe there's 12 channels that your router can broadcast on. If you and your neighbor, or like in my case, if I bring up Wi-Fi Analyzer, I can see 7 or 8 networks that are right around me. And so I can see what channel each of those are broadcasting on. So instead of all of us broadcasting on the same channel and kind of interfering with each other, you want to be on separate channels, and there wouldn't be interference from each other. Your modem would operate probably 2 to 3, 4 times faster than if everybody was on the same channel, because it kind of goes back to that kind of shouting. When you're on the same channel, let's say it's channel 7 of 12 there, your modem has to look at all requests coming in for channel 7. And so if your neighbor is watching Netflix, there's constantly, give me more information from Netflix on channel 7. Give me more information from Netflix. Your router has to look at that and say, wait a minute, I got this in, but they aren't on my network, so I'm going to disregard that signal. So there's overhead and listening to that and saying, I'm not going to respond to it. So if you're on your own channel and nobody else is using that, it's clear it's not responding to other neighbors or other Wi-Fi in the area there. So that's the reason for for having your own channel there and not overlapping.
And I'll just mention that's going to be one of the settings when you go into the router setup part, is that you can select the channel.
And some of them will do auto, and the auto is at a particular time. It tries to pick the best channel, but maybe a week later your neighbor installed something else or they moved their channel. So it's something that you want to monitor, and these apps and things will let you monitor and see what's being used there. Okay.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. And as I said, I'm going to have to drop myself. So thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you. And if people do have other questions, we do have the question and answer in February, or send an email and we'll respond to it. But thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time then.
Thank you, Tom. I think we learned a lot. Bonnie says thank you as well.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome.
Some people liked I learned so much today. Thanks, Tom. So yeah, very much appreciated. Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll see you later then.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.